The 2026 Madrid Open will forever be remembered as the exact moment Philippine tennis rewrote its history. But before Alex Eala shocked the world and shattered records on the red clay of Spain, she was carrying a weight that would crush most players before they even stepped onto the court. Listen to the roar of the crowd. The intense afternoon. Sun is beating down heavily on the Manolo Santana Stadium. Thousands of fans are completely on their feet. They are holding their breath. The tension in the air is electric. Alex bounces the ball. 1, 2, 3. She tosses it up into the bright sky. The crisp sound of the racket connecting with the ball echoes across the massive arena. She unleashes a blistering forehand down the line. The ball clips the edge of the line. Game, set, match. In a single explosive heartbeat, an entire nation of over 100 million people erupts in pure joy. For decades, the Philippines had been waiting for a true tennis superstar to break through on the global stage. They watched other countries celebrate their homegrown champions. They waited. They hoped. They prayed fervently. And standing there on the red dirt in Madrid, a young woman from Quezon City finally delivered the miracle they so desperately craved. She did not just win a tennis match, she absolutely shattered a heavy glass ceiling that had kept Southeast Asian players out of the highest echelons of professional tennis for far too long. She proved to the entire world that greatness does not only come from traditional tennis powerhouses in Europe or America. She proved that a girl from the islands could dominate the elite. But the bright camera flashes and the glorious trophy ceremonies always hide the true cost of greatness. The path to that glorious afternoon was anything but simple. It was paved with intense loneliness. It was built on long nights filled with crippling doubt. To truly understand the incredible magnitude of what just happened in Madrid, we have to go back to the exact moment everyone thought the dream was over. Imagine being hailed as the ultimate savior of your nation before you even turned 16 years old. That was not just an exaggerated media headline for Alex Eala. It was her daily reality. Try to picture the immense pressure resting squarely on the narrow shoulders of a young teenager. She packed her bags and left her comfortable home. She traveled thousands of miles away to the prestigious Rafa Nadal Academy in Spain. She left behind her loving family. She left behind her childhood friends. She sacrificed her normal teenage years to chase an almost impossible dream. At first, the entire tennis world was at her feet. She conquered the junior circuit with absolute and terrifying dominance. She lifted beautiful junior Grand Slam trophies in Paris and New York. Everyone smiled and nodded in agreement. Elite tennis experts said she was undeniably destined for absolute greatness. The media back home tracked her every single move with intense scrutiny. Every victory was broadcast across major national television networks. Millions of passionate fans shared her highlights on social media platforms. She was the undisputed golden child of Philippine sports, but the professional tour does not care about your shiny junior trophies. The transition from dominating young girls to competing on the brutal professional tour is incredibly harsh. It is literally like walking into a buzzsaw blindfolded. Suddenly, you are not playing against scared kids anymore. You are facing fully grown women who are fighting tooth and nail to put food on their tables. You are facing seasoned veterans who know every dark trick in the rulebook. They hit the ball harder. They run faster. They exploit your weaknesses with ruthless precision. The physical toll on the body is absolutely devastating, but the mental toll is entirely different and far more dangerous. When Alex started playing smaller professional events, the harsh reality of the grueling tour hit her extremely hard. The transition was agonizingly slow. Painful losses started piling up one after another. Matches she would normally win easily in straight sets turned into grueling three-set nightmares that drained her soul. And the worst part is the profound silence. When you are winning on the glamorous junior tour, everyone wants to talk to you. Cameras follow you everywhere. When you start losing in the first round of obscure qualifying tournaments in tiny European towns, the arena is completely empty. The silence in those cold locker rooms is deafening. You sit there alone with your thoughts. Yet back home, the towering expectations never dropped even a single inch. Every single defeat felt like she was personally letting down an entire country that believed in her. People started asking brutal questions on the internet. They openly wondered if she was just another overhyped junior talent who could not survive the big leagues. The noise from the critics grew louder with every passing week. She had the raw talent. She had the world-class coaching from the Nadal family. But the professional tennis tour is a relentless meat grinder. It chews up brilliant young prodigies and spits them out every single day without mercy. The crushing reality of the circuit was actively pushing her to the absolute brink of despair. When you are sitting in a lonely hotel room halfway across the world after a brutal loss, it is incredibly easy to question everything you have ever worked for. You might be watching this video right now and feeling that exact same exhaustion in your own life. You work so incredibly hard. You do everything perfectly right, but the results just absolutely refuse to show up. If you understand that deep emotional pain of feeling hopelessly stuck while the whole world expects you to fly, I invite you to join our community right here. We explore stories of pure human resilience, just like this every single week to help you find the strength for your own breakthrough. Because for Alex Eala, the hardest trial was yet to come. The darkest clouds were gathering right before the European clay swing. Every great athlete hits a wall. But for Ala, the months leading up to the European clay swing felt less like a wall and more like a total collapse. The early weeks of the 2026 season were brutally unforgiving. She entered tournament after tournament hoping to build a solid foundation. Instead, she found only crushing disappointment waiting for her. The draws were incredibly tough. The opponents were relentlessly aggressive. She suffered painful early exits in matches she was desperately expected to win. Small physical aches began to haunt her daily practice sessions. Her global ranking completely refused to move upward. It felt like she was running full speed on a treadmill going nowhere. The losses piled up, one by one. The pressure mounted, the air grew incredibly thin. The sports media back home slowly began to change their tone. The daily headlines transformed from pure celebratory praise to intense and uncomfortable questioning. Pundits and analysts openly asked if she had simply peaked too early as a junior. They debated if the seasoned women on the professional tour were simply too powerful and too experienced for her to overcome. They wondered if the massive weight of national expectation had finally broken her spirit. You truly have to understand the deeply isolating nature of professional tennis to grasp this pain. When you lose a match on a cold Tuesday morning in an unfamiliar European city, there is absolutely no team to catch you when you fall. There are no teammates to share the heavy burden of defeat. You walk off the court alone. You pack your own bags in a dead silent locker room. You book your own commercial flight to the next lonely destination. You sit alone in a quiet airport terminal with the heavy weight of an entire nation pressing down on your chest. She was giving absolutely everything she had inside of her. She was training until her muscles burned and her lungs screamed for air. But the desired results remained painfully out of reach. The mental fatigue was becoming far more damaging than any physical injury could ever be. It is terrifying to look in the mirror and wonder if your very best effort is simply not good enough to survive at the highest level. With her ranking completely stalled and the loud whispers of doubt growing louder every single day, she packed her bags and arrived in Madrid. Nobody expected a miracle. The tennis world had practically moved on to the next bright young star. But sometimes, hitting rock bottom is exactly what you need to completely shatter the glass ceiling. Then came Madrid. Walking onto the red clay of Spain, something monumental shifted. It was not just a minor change in her physical technique. It was a completely different mindset staring intensely across the net. She drew a highly ranked veteran in the opening phase of the tournament. The casual fans and the seasoned critics all expected a quick and painless defeat for the struggling young player. The first set went exactly as the loud critics predicted. She fell behind quickly. The veteran opponent hit the ball with overwhelming power and dictated the pace of the match with ruthless efficiency. The situation looked completely hopeless. But then we witnessed an absolute masterclass in tactical evolution. She did not panic. She did not fold under the immense pressure. She completely reframed the entire battlefield. She stopped trying to hit flat and hard directly through her incredibly powerful opponent. Instead, she unleashed a devastating weapon she had been secretly and obsessively perfecting on the practice courts in Mallorca. She drastically increased the heavy topspin rate on her forehand by an incredible margin. The yellow ball began kicking up violently and unpredictably off the crushed red dirt. She pushed her opponent far behind the baseline and completely disrupted their comfortable rhythm. This brilliant tactical adjustment completely flipped the script of the match. Have you ever noticed how a subtle strategic change can completely rewrite a seemingly hopeless situation in your own life or career? Tell me about your own strategic pivot in the comments below, because this specific pivot changed everything for her moving forward. She dug her heels deep into the red dust. She chased down impossible drop shots that no one else could reach. She slid beautifully across the wide court with explosive and terrifying speed. The momentum of the match violently swung in her favor. She rallied back from the absolute brink of total defeat. Her eyes locked onto the ball with the cold focus of a seasoned predator. She broke the serve of her opponent with a blistering passing shot directly down the line. The massive stadium erupted in pure shock and sheer disbelief. She clenched her fist and let out a massive roar that echoed through the entire arena. The ghost of her recent failures vanished completely into the Spanish air. That single match did not just save her tournament. It ignited a massive firestorm that the rest of the professional tour was absolutely unprepared for. What followed was not just a magnificent winning streak. It was a systematic dismantling of the absolute elite of professional tennis. Suddenly, the girl who was deeply doubting her own abilities only weeks ago was actively dictating play against seasoned veterans ranked in the top 20. She stepped onto the beautiful red clay for her next round with an entirely new aura surrounding her. She was radiating pure and undeniable confidence. She faced a fiercely aggressive opponent ranked in the top 50 and completely neutralized her massive power. She won an astonishing 14 of the final 17 points in that pivotal second set. The passionate fans in the stands could barely believe their own eyes. They were witnessing a spectacular rebirth happening right in front of them. The incredibly heavy topspin she unleashed pushed her thoroughly confused rivals far out of their comfortable striking zones. Her opponents were swinging wildly at empty air. They were completely suffocated by her relentless and brilliant tactical pressure. Then came the terrifying matches against the established titans of the tour. Nobody in the crowded press room expected the young player to survive this brutal gauntlet. They universally assumed her miraculous run was finally over, but she was no longer playing like a nervous rookie hoping to simply survive the afternoon. She was a woman on a brutal and highly calculated mission. She painted the deep corners of the court with blistering forehand winners that left the audience gasping. Her heavy kick serves violently jumped off the crushed red dirt. She broke serve after serve with a cold and terrifying efficiency. The heavy clay demands a massive physical toll from every single player. Her legs must have felt like solid blocks of lead. The intense baseline rallies stretched beyond 20 grueling shots. Every single muscle fiber in her body burned with agonizing pain. Yet she completely refused to surrender even a single inch of ground. When her desperate opponents tried to bring her forward with delicate drop shots, she exploded off the baseline with terrifying speed. She anticipated their defensive patterns before they even hit the yellow ball. With each phenomenal victory, she inched closer to rewriting the history books of her nation. The pressure was mounting by the hour, but she carried it like a completely weightless crown. When she finally secured a match point in the defining match, she achieved something truly monumental. She achieved something no player from her country had ever done in the entire history of the prestigious sport. She officially became the first player from the Philippines to reach this deep into a major 1,000-level event. The sheer magnitude of this unprecedented achievement sent absolute shockwaves across the entire globe. The busy streets of Manila erupted in pure, unadulterated joy. A proud nation that had waited so incredibly long finally had their undisputed queen of the court. But if you look very closely at the unedited court footage, you will discover something absolutely fascinating. You will see a brilliant secret the major sports networks completely missed during their live broadcasts. It was not just the heavy forehand that secured her glorious place in history. Her entire coaching team noted a radical change in her micro-tactics. During the most terrifying pressure points of the tournament, when she was facing a dangerous break point, she deliberately lowered her breathing rate. She maintained an absolute poker face of solid ice. She completely masked any visible sign of physical fatigue or mental doubt from her opponents. More importantly, she subtly adjusted the specific revolutions per minute on her forehand wing. Instead of hitting the ball flat with nervous panic, she increased her spin rate by nearly 20% exactly when she was trailing in the score. This microscopic adjustment forced the ball to bounce violently high above the shoulders of her rivals. It completely choked the aggressive timing of her opponents. They were expecting a fast flat ball but received a heavy kicking nightmare instead. It was a tactical masterstroke executed under the most extreme pressure imaginable. By breaking the Philippine tennis record in Madrid, Alex Eala did not just silence her loud critics once and for all. She fundamentally changed the entire landscape of Asian tennis forever. The massive shockwaves of this victory extend far beyond the beautiful Spanish capital. Eala has definitively proven that absolute greatness is not safely confined to traditional tennis powerhouses in Europe or America. Tennis is an incredibly expensive and highly exclusive sport. It often favors players from wealthy federations with nearly infinite resources. For a dedicated player from the Philippines to violently break through this massive systemic barrier is nothing short of a modern sporting miracle. Millions of young aspiring children watching on small television screens across Southeast Asia finally saw something beautiful and deeply validating. They saw someone who looks exactly like them, completely dominating the biggest athletic stages in the world. She gave them the ultimate permission to dream significantly bigger than their current circumstances. She shattered the deeply ingrained limiting belief that players from tropical island nations cannot survive the brutal and grueling European clay courts. She proved that with enough resilience, any obstacle can be completely obliterated. But the incredible fire burning deep in her dark eyes tells a completely different story. She is absolutely not satisfied with just making the second week of a single prestigious tournament. She has tasted the rarefied air of the absolute elite. She knows she belongs right up there with the true legendary giants of the game. The grand stage of Roland Garros is patiently waiting for her. The pristine green grass of Wimbledon is loudly calling her name. The brutal hard courts of New York are actively preparing for her glorious arrival. She broke the historic record today, but looking at her intense focus, right now this feels like only the prologue of a massive, epic story. She has officially put the entire professional tour on high alert. The struggling underdog has successfully transformed into an unstoppable apex predator. The only question remaining is how much higher she can climb before this magical season ends. How deep into the upcoming Grand Slams will her incredible tactical genius carry her this year? Give me your boldest predictions in the comments below and join our growing community today, so you are perfectly ready when we break down her very next glorious piece of history.